Hi friends, I have prepared revision notes on the subject risk management comes under ICSA course, and it's very in brief and hardly takes time to understand. So let's start. Part 1: Importance of risk management as a stakeholder approach. Risk management is essential to preserve and create value for stakeholders. Organization exists to meet the needs of shareholders, and they inevitably make risky decisions that generates the stakeholder value and at the same time reduce the risk of adverse events such as pollution, injury or bankruptcy. To fulfill the needs of stakeholders, organization takes risk which yield positive results and reduce risk that could cause financial or physical harm. Risk exposure that exists will influence the type of strategy that is chosen. Risk exposure will choose the type of strategy. The adequate management of risk requires time and financial resources. Employees and managers do not always appreciate the value of this investment. Organization serves the needs of multiple stakeholders through setting objectives that provide appropriate balance between risk and return. Degree of management of these risks will depend upon the risk attitude and preferences of these stakeholders. Mostly stakeholders are risk averse. They don't want to prefer risk and they want the certainty in the risk. But it is not necessary that they will demand the same level of risk reduction because their objectives are different. Shareholders sometimes do not behave in a risk averse way, but instead they prefer the risk because of three things: asymmetric returns, limited liability, diversification of the risk. Shareholders of falling organization always encouraged to take excessive risks to improve fortune. Example is startup. Bankruptcy cost means legal and administrative cost. Also, the loss of the goodwill is the cost which need to be bear by the company for bankruptcy or ultimately the owner. Cash another point is cash flow fluctuations. Gain from taking risk will increase the cash flow and loss from taking risk will reduce the cash flow to the organization. Fluctuations in cash flow could be disruptive. Large unexpected loss means there is insufficient cash to invest in profitable opportunities and also lead to high cost debt finance. In contrast, company with a stable cash flow can invest in future and can give better results to their shareholders. Return required for higher taking higher risk is called risk premium. Effective risk management help balance the conflict exists between the stakeholders as well as they have different objectives by weighting up the different priorities and assessing the cost and benefit of different risk management decisions. Reasons for risk management regulations are problem of self-regulations, market failure, weighting up the cost and benefit analysis, role of compliance management. Okay. The topic is type of stakeholders. There are two types of stakeholders. One is internal stakeholder. These are the stakeholders. They look after day-to-day operations of the organization or internally. Examples are employees and board of directors. External stakeholders. These are the stakeholders. They do not involved in the day-to-day operation of the company organization, but they influence the working of the organization. Examples are regulators, creditors, suppliers, general public, customers, rating agencies, and so on. Now, global regulatory environment for risk management. How? It contains range of international laws and regulations that address the management of risk. Number and complexity of these regulations grown from global financial crisis and many local laws and regulations that are influenced by international laws and regulations. These international regulations and standards in relation to risk management activities cover following areas. Number one, corporate governance is an it is an important element because weak governance lead to corruption, costly scandal, failure, system breakdown. International regulations and standard helps to promote sustainable economic growth on global level, ensure that shareholders are treated fairly, and organization has cost effective access to global capital market. Second point is environment. Risk does not respect national boundaries, international laws, and regulations. In uh, regard, this is consists of complex and legal binding treaties and subsidiary protocols. These laws and protocols are incorporated in the national regulations and EU directives. Third is financial stability. It is the key source of risk for both financial and non-financial organizations. For non-financial organization, a stable global financial system that ensures continuous access to capital resources and financial system and trigger worldwide economic problem like global crisis, etc. The last one is the health and safety protection. Human rights are the major focus areas of international laws and regulations. Now, these risk management compliances regulations are consist of following rules. These are direct legal requirements and prevention lead to enforcement actions like imprisonments and fines. Second one is guidance. Standard or code of practice, need not to be complied as strictly as rules. Organization will decide the implementation and interpretation, and it basically reflects a good practice. Most of the international regulations are produced in the form of standards or guidelines. Now, third one is principle and outcome based regulation. It relies on high level regulatory principle and associated outcome. The aim is to minimize the volume of detailed rules and guidance and allow organization more freedom. Risk varies according to the complexity and scale. This gives more flexibility to apply risk-based regulations. Fourth one. These are the combination of rules, guidance, principle, and outcome-based regulations. The idea is the higher degree of the risk, the more stricter the level of regulation applies. Now, international risk management standard. There are a number of risk management guidelines and practices regardless of size, activity, and sector. Provide framework and process that can be used to evaluate and further improve risk management process. And basically they provide international benchmark for good practice.